Is there something in your life you're overprotective about? Maybe it's a person, or an object, or maybe even you. Now ask yourself this, is it even doing you any good? You should absolutely be cautious, but being overly protective leaves little room for experimentation for either yourself or the thing you were protective of. And I can't help but notice this a little in gaming as well. In the film and TV industry, it feels like risks are being taken all the time. Most of them don't pay off, mind you, but every once in a while you'll come across something so wild that consumers won't stop talking about that thing for months. Franchises sometimes crossing over with each other to make the most exhilarating media you'll ever watch. Indie films sneaking up seemingly out of nowhere with the most outlandish of concepts, and shows bringing back event television. You know, where a show is so good you can't wait to discuss it in the office tomorrow. You could argue the landscapes are different. The time to make a television show or movie is drastically smaller than a game, and depending on the property, so is the budget. But in video games, it feels like it's everyone for themselves. Yes, of course, sometimes games have crossovers too, but 9 times out of 10, all it's for is for some overpriced cosmetic skin and nothing more. Whilst the gaming landscape is changing, it doesn't feel like it's evolving. Speaking of not evolving, Bethesda, our first topic of the video. Well, specifically Bethesda Game Studios. We're not talking about Doom or Prey here. If you've not played a Bethesda game, you might just be part of the 1% who haven't at this point. Some of the games they've made since their founding in the early 2000s are considered some of the greatest of all time. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, Fallout 3, Skyrim. Oh! Skyrim! All of which are kind of dated now. Yet somehow Bethesda haven't received that memo, since they've been stuck with the same formula for their games ever since. I'm not saying Fallout 4 isn't amazing, I really enjoyed it and even 100%ed it, agonizingly, but it felt like a step to the side rather than a step ahead. And then I think you know what came after that. Take me home. Fallout 76. They basically took the assets of Fallout 4, slapped them on a new map, and told you to go and explore that barren wasteland. It was certainly barren, alright. And then there was Starfield, a chance to put everyone on the straight and narrow, to explore new worlds and find out what wonders were out there. And it was just boring. It was the same Bethesda formula, but empty. Again! But let's forget about Starfield. In fact, let's talk about Fallout some more. So, Bethesda, if you're watching this video, can I just ask, what are you doing? Okay, so for their announced single-player catalogue, Bethesda are currently working on the following. More Starfield content, as if anybody actually wanted it, and The Elder Scrolls 6. What about Fallout? Oh, what's that, Todd? Fallout 5 is likely coming after The Elder Scrolls 6, which probably won't be released until after 2026 itself, meaning we probably won't get a Fallout 5 until at least 2030? And what's that? You wish more Fallout games came out faster? Huh. Well, if only there was some sort of way a Fallout game could be made whilst your team is hard at work on more Starfield content and The Elder Scrolls 6. Give it to someone else! I promise you, there are probably more than 1,000 game developers out there that would lap up the chance to make a Fallout game. And let me be clear, it doesn't have to be Fallout 5. Bethesda can absolutely make that, but give someone else a go in the meantime. Fallout New Vegas is highly regarded as one of the best, if not the best Fallout game purely because it took Fallout 3's mechanics and just said, what if we turned it into gold? The next Fallout game doesn't have to be a $70 AAA game that takes 60 hours to beat. It can just be a AA 20-hour game for $40. At least it's something potentially fresh, something to tide people over until the big one. Instead, the franchise is just sitting there. Oh, what's that? There's still content being made for Fallout 76. Go away. I should clarify as well that Bethesda aren't the only ones who are doing this. The last Halo game was in 2021, and it's likely another one won't be made for at least another 3+ years, and will probably also be stale because it would be made by 343 Industries. Again, because they've done such a bang-up job so far since Bungie left. Uncharted hasn't had a new entry in 7 years. Oh, but Kranitoko! All 3 of these properties have had mildly successful TV shows and films to keep people busy. What planet are you on? Halo got cancelled because it didn't follow the source material properly. The Uncharted movie was horribly miscasted and screwed too much with their source material. And the Fallout TV series, well, I actually thoroughly enjoyed that. But 8 episodes wasn't enough. Okay, let's all calm down. And let's take a deep breath, shall we? Breathe in. And I'm done. Let's talk about World of Warcraft. Since the MMO launched, it has made Blizzard billions in revenue. Initially from expansion sales, but now it's mostly just from cosmetics people can't seemingly say no to. The Warcraft franchise hasn't really branched out much in the video game space. It started as real-time strategy games between 1994 to 2003, and since 2004 has just been an MMO. There's been some odd quirky titles that use elements from the franchise like Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm and Warcraft Rumble, but other than that, nothing else. Okay, well, I guess there was that Warcraft 3 remake, which didn't go down so well, but I'm referring to new content. Why is it that all the stories in this world are only ever told in the MMO or in novels? Why haven't we had a Warcraft 4? I'm sure people might say the RTS genre is dead, but I would disagree. It's just untapped these days. The problem I see in this industry is that big companies like Activision want to go big or not try at all. They aim for AAA to bring in the big bucks. They don't care about trying to go smaller. But what they seem to fail to realise is that gamers don't want to take huge monetary risks anymore, especially in this economy. You need to entice them in with small bites first, and if they like what they've tried, they'll trust you enough to try more. And more. I could absolutely see a smaller scale Warcraft RTS game be made that, if done well enough, could slowly revive the genre. But what about other genres? What if we had a single-player action-adventure game set in a specific continent, maybe the mystical Pandaria? A self-contained choose-your-own-adventure in the same vein as games made by Telltale, perhaps involving the caverns of time regarding your choices. Or what about a 2D pixel RPG adventure in the same vein as Octopath Traveler or the original Final Fantasies? And the best thing of all, if these smaller games were good, it could possibly entice new and old players back to the MMO. The big problem with a lot of publishers is that they don't think about feeding back into the food chain. They just want to be top dog and keep it all to themselves. And then they wonder why their audiences keep dwindling. Okay, so there is one more topic I want to talk about, and if you've watched my videos from the last few months, you may have noticed I've slipped something in. Some games are just straight up no longer available to play without emulation. Okay, so if I'm being honest, what I'm describing here could actually apply to all video game publishers. Dino Crisis, please remake this, Capcom, I'm begging you! So yeah, I really want a Dino Crisis remake. But you know what's funny? I've never even finished it before. My memories of this game was that I would watch my brother play it, and when I would go around my grandmother's, I would also play the first 2 or so hours and then never play past that because I'd just get too scared. Sue me, I was like 11 years old. I have since watched a full playthrough of the game, and at some stage I would like to fully play through it myself, but we're getting off track. The point is, it's a franchise people want to be remade. The horror game market died in the 2000s, but has since made a tremendous comeback, especially with the likes of the Resident Evil remakes. Dinosaurs are, of course, perfect for horror, and what a better way to make dinosaurs scary again than with Dino Crisis. It basically played like an original Resident Evil game, except you were mostly shooting raptors instead of zombies. Right now, Capcom are doing nothing with this franchise, and no one seems to know why, even though it feels like people have been asking for a remake for more than a decade now. Oh, but they did do something with dinosaurs, and it's something. There are many other games out there that either deserve the remake treatment or even the sequel treatment that for some reason the publisher of the franchise refuses to do anything with. Let's take Bloodborne. Perfect game, 10 out of 10, even if it is stuck at 30 frames per second. People have been demanding a remaster or a PC port for more than half a decade. If they're not demanding that, they're demanding a sequel. I swear, I see this game on Twitter's trending every other week, and that's hard to do. They seem to have done so much with this franchise outside of the game. They've made comics, they've made card games, they've made a board game, of which I own the base game and all the expansions for. Yes, this cost me a lot of money, but for some reason, they haven't made a sequel. We as gamers obviously don't know the reason. Could it be that the rights are actually with From Software and not Sony? Did Bloodborne fail that hard? If it did, why is so much merch still being made? Or was Bloodborne perhaps too perfect to have a sequel made for it? And going back to World of Warcraft for a moment, why in the ever-loving hell has it not been ported onto consoles yet? Final Fantasy XIV is one of the more prominent and big MMOs now, which was held because the game is playable in more than one place. PC, PlayStation, and recently now Xbox, playable either with a controller or mouse and keyboard on all platforms. There's even a supposed mobile version coming at some stage. I've seen people download add-ons to try and play WoW with a controller, and from what I can tell, it works. It can work. So how in the hell in the 20 years this game has been out has it not made its way over yet? That's a market of over 100 million potential players. But this is the problem. When you make something so good, people will want more. I don't know what it is about this industry, but it does not want to share with itself for some reason. Think of all the possibilities we could have if the big developers swapped franchises for a decade or so. There would be some absolute misfires, of course, but just sit there and think of some of the incredible possibilities. A Fallout game made by Baldur's Gate 3 developer Larian Studios. A Pokemon game made by Xenoblade Chronicles developer Monolith Soft. A Star Wars game made by Elden Ring and Souls developer From Software. The possibilities are, of course, endless. But as I said, with the mentality being every man for themselves, I guess we just gotta live with what we currently have. And that's not bad exactly. But at some point, I just worry things may suddenly become less innovative. If it hasn't already.